All right, majors, we're going to pick up where we left off with the last video. I stopped it, actually, I paused it and then decided to stop it to break these lessons up into two videos. But anyway, so we're going to go back to the calculator. We are now on this page. This is what your page should look like. I'm just going to move the calculator. So number one says, it says fill in the table of values using the calculator to graph a basic quadratic function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this, our y equals, and we're going to clear out whatever we have there. And we're going to start by entering in what they gave us right here, which was y equals x squared. And so now I need to get my calculator again. So we're going to enter in y equals and then x squared. Uh-oh. Wonderful. All right, so we're going to be looking to get the table of values. So I'm going to show you how we get the table of values. So now that we entered in x squared, now we're going to hit the blue button, second, and then graph, and it's going to give us a table. Now we're looking to see, we need to get the y values, but how do we know how to do that? Well, as you can see, they gave us some x values right here. So we're going to start with what they first gave us. So they first gave us a -3. So right here we see for our x values are starting at 1. So we're going to have to scroll up until we get to -3. Voila, here we are. So for -3, my y value is going to be 9. So I'm going to enter in a 9 here. All right, if you keep looking, I won't be able to write and have the calculator up at the same time. But if you keep looking right here, right, at your table, your -2 is going to be a 4. This would be a 4. Your -1 is going to be a 1. Your 0 is going to be a 0. Your 1 is going to be a 1. Your 2 is going to be a 4. And your 3 is going to be a 9. So I'm going to go ahead and write those in. So 4, 1, 0, 1, 4, 9. Wonderful. So now guess what we get to do? We get to graph this. It's so important that you guys know how to graph your points, your ordered pair. So first we're going to start with our x value, which is 3. So this is our x and this is our y. We're going to start with -3, and then we're going to go up to a +9, which is right here. So our first spot is going to be here. Then we're going to go to -2. So we have -2 and 4. -2 and 4. Then we're going to have -1 and 1. Then we have 0, 0. Then we have 1 and 1. So we have 1 and 1. Then we have 2 and 4. X is 2. X is 2. And then our y is 4. That's our next point. Then we have a +3 and 9. So we're going to go to 3. Then we're going to go up to our y value, which is 9. And guess what we have? If we connect all of these dots, guess what we have? We have a parabola. Wonderful. Oop, I missed that. Sorry. So anyway, so it wants to know, what is our vertex? What is our vertex? Remember, your vertex, depending on which direction your graph goes, is going to be the highest point or the lowest point in the graph. And the lowest point in this graph is going to be what? 0, 0. I'm going to change my color real quick. But this is your vertex right here. So what about the x-intercepts? What is the x-intercept? Where does this graph touch the x-axis? And it touches the x-axis at 0, 0. All right, what about the 0? So the zeros and even your roots are your what? Your x values, right? So for here, your x value, where this touches the x-axis, your x value for that is going to be what? Your x is going to be 0. For both. Remember, your roots and your zeros are the same. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to enter in this function right here. So I'm going to grab my graphing calculator, and I'm going to clear it. I'm going to go to x or y equals. I'm going to clear it right here. When I clear it, I'm going to enter in x squared plus 2x minus 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit second graph. And I'm going to look at my values. Okay, so there's nothing that's added in for this. So I'm going to start at -5. Let me start at -5. Oh, we're going to start at -5. We're going to go all the way down until we get to +3. Now, there's not enough room in these boxes, so just bear with me. So I want you to look. So your -5 is going to be -5 and 7, -5 and 7, -4 and 0, -4 and 0, -3, -5, -3, -5, -2, -8, -2, -8. And we're going to keep going down so you can kind of follow me as I'm doing this. So my first point is going to be a -5 and 7, and then I'm going to have a -4 and 0, and then I'm going to have a -3 and a -5, and then I'm going to have a -2 and a -8, and then I'm going to have a -1 and a -9. Remember, you're getting all this off the graph, off the table that I just showed you. So I'm going to have a 0 and a -8, and then I'm going to have a 1 and a -5. I'm going to keep going. So then after that, I would have a 2 and a 0, and then I'm going to put the last one down here, which would be 3 and 1. I recognize that the box doesn't extend, right? It doesn't extend. There you go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph these points starting with our x values. Our x values starting at -5 going up to 7. So -5 and 7. That's going to be my first point right here. Okay. Then I have a -4 and 0. -4 starting with the x is -4, but it's 0. So I'm not going to move off the x-axis. Then I have a -3 and then a -5. A -3 and a -5. -3 on my x, and then I go down to -5 on my y. Then I have a -2 and a -8, which is right here. Then I have a -1 and a, sorry, this should be a -9. So I have a -1 and a -9, right? But then I'm going to 0. So I have 0 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to a -8, which is right here. And then I have a 1 and a -5, so I'm going to a +1 and a -5, so I'm putting my point right here. And then I'm going to a +2 and 0, which is going to stay right here. And then my last point, which is a +3 and 7, I'm going to go to a +3, and I'm going to move up to, I have a +7. And now I can kind of draw my lines, make sure that I hit my points. I'm doing a horrible job. Forgive me. All right. So this right here, they want to know what is the vertex. So remember, your vertex is the lowest point. I'm going to erase these points right here. You guys should have these written down. But remember, your vertex is going to be your lowest point, right? So your lowest point, since the graph is going up, your lowest point is going to be what? Your lowest point is a -1 and a -9. Okay? So now it wants to know what are your zeros, your roots, or your intercepts. So your zeros and roots are the intercepts are what? Are your x values for this lowest point. Okay? So that is going to be, oh, I'm sorry, your zeros and your roots are where, your graph crosses your x-axis. Okay? So your ordered pair for each one, the ordered pair for this one is a -4 and 0, and the second one is what? A 2, 1, but they just want the x values of both of these, right? When they're asking for the roots and the zeros, they just want the x values of both of these. So your x equals a -4 and 2, all right? So now they want to factor the trinomial function. Right, so the trinomial function is this right here. So it is, I'm going to rewrite it right here. It is x squared plus 2x minus 8. Guess what? We don't even have to plug this back in the calculator because we know what our x values are. So we know that we have an x. Remember, this is a -4, but when we're factoring, we're going to switch the sign to a +4, and this is a +2, so we're going to switch it to a -2. And that is the factor of this trinomial function. Remember, it's a trinomial function because we have 1, 2, 3 terms. All right? So now we're going to do a couple more. So it says, given the graph, determine the zeros, the x-intercepts. Let me underline this for you. The x-intercepts. We need to determine the x-intercepts. So we need to see where in this graph does this graph cross the x-axis. And I'm seeing 2 points right here. Okay? So we're going to look at this. We can go 1, 2. So we know that the x-intercepts, ordered pair for this person right here would be a -2 and 0. Sorry, I know this looks like a -2. And then 1, 2, 3. And then we have a 3, 0. All right? So that means that my x, remember they just want the x value. So that means my x equals a -2 and 3. Now, let's move on to the next one because I just want you to determine the zeros, the x-intercept. So let's look at this. I'm going to use a different color. So where in this graph does it cross? Remember, this is your x and this is your y. Does it cross the x-axis? So this is where it crosses the x-axis, and this is also where it crosses the x-axis. All right, so I'm going to erase this so that way we can see. So if we look at the zeros, we see here that this right here, your zeros are going to be, your first ordered pair is going to be a -1 and 0. So we have a -1 and 0. My second ordered pair is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be a +4 and 0. So that means that my x is going to equal a -1 and 0. Those are my zeros. X equals -1 and 0. Remember, we're just looking for the x values of the ordered pair. So we're doing the same thing here. So it says, where does this graph touch the x-axis? And it touches the x-axis right here. So let's count these and figure out what it is. So the ordered pair is 1, 2. So that's a +2, 0. So your x or your 0 that they're looking for is going to be, remember they're looking just for the x value, is just going to be 2. All right? So now we're going to look at this graph right here. So we're looking, does this graph cross the x-axis at all? And it does not. So there are no zeros. There are none. There are no zeros. There are no zeros. All right? So now this one wants you to circle the zeros on the graph and determine the factors of the function. All right? So that means that we're going to circle. So let's circle where this graph crosses the x-axis. This is x and this is y. So we're going to circle here and we're going to circle here. So our ordered pairs, our x's are going to be, remember this is the 0, so we technically don't have to write the ordered pair. Don't have to write the ordered pair, right? So the first ordered pair is going to be a +1 and 0, +1 and 0, and the second one is going to be a 3, 0. Okay, they're looking for the x value. You do not have to write the ordered pair. You could have just written x equals 1 and 3, and now they want you to factor it out. Now they want you to factor it out. Now, how do we factor this out? How we can factor this is we see we have a positive x, so we can say x. Remember, if it's a positive, we're going to switch it to a negative. X, -1. And then we can write x, this is a +3, -3. So now they want you to multiply these out. Remember how we did this before? We used the box method. So we drew a box, right? And we put x -1, and then we put x -3. And when we multiplied it all out, it came to x squared minus 4x plus 3. That's what they want you to do. So you're using the box method to check your factors. All right, we're going to do the same thing here. So we want to know where this graph crosses the x-axis, and it crosses here. So my zeros, I'm not going to write the ordered pair this time. The zeros are going to be x equals a negative 3 and x equals 0. Right? So the factors, how would you factor this? So if I have a negative 3, then I can say x plus negative 3, and then I can also say x 0. So I say x minus 0, which is the same thing as saying, x plus 3 and x, right? Because we have a 0, so we can get rid of that 0. So if we were to use the box method, I want you guys to use the box method to solve this. I want to see the work on your paper. It should be x squared plus 3x. If you use the box method, remember, when you use the box method, you're going to set it up like this. So you can say x and 3, and then you can say x and 0. All right, now we're going to do the same thing here. Where does this graph cross the x-axis? And it crosses it at what? I'm not going to do the ordered pair, but it crosses it at what? 1. All right? So when we're writing our factors, we only have this one. So we can say x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 1. If you use the box method to multiply everything out, right? I want to see you guys do the work. Use the box method. Use this and plug it in. You're going to get x squared minus 2x plus 1. Don't worry about this one. All right, so after you're done watching this video, we're going to come together and we are going to work on the classwork on the next page, and we'll get started from there. All right, bye.